Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Green Zone podcast with yours truly, Cameron Green here on our final episode of 2024, at least here in the media studio here in our normal setup. We'll be trying to take this thing back home, back remote for the holidays. So things might look a little differently here. May or may not be posting over the holidays and kind of that month of January. So we'll see. At the very worst, we'll pick up here beginning of mid of January entry there, but a lot's gonna happen. So I want to stay on top of a bunch of this stuff. Feel free to keep posting to our Twitter page. We'll post a lot of stuff there about updates and stuff like that. So check out our Twitter page at GreenZone Pod on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it here. Today I'm going to talk about some certain NFL quarterbacks getting the bench, getting the hot seat there, showing their way to the clipboard and the headset. I'll look at our NFL playoff lookout and our weekly picks. Going to touch on a recent baseball move that happened the other day. And that was kind of just lead us into what our Christmas celebration will do here. As we're almost one full year into this podcast. It's kind of crazy to think, but we're almost a full year in. So I want to start off here with the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins moving to the bench. Moving to the bench here now. Michael Penix Jr. will be taking over for this week, and you could say possibly for the foreseeable future, if not for years to come. I'm not really surprised that Atlanta's doing this now because right now I want to take a look at their playoff odds right now on this season. It's at 30%, and I think most of that is riding on a division chance that the Buccaneers currently hold. But at the same time, I don't think that they are surprised by this either because, I mean, you drafted Penix for a reason. You drafted him to be the successor to Kirk. However long that was going to be, he was going to be in that starting spot that Kirk is at. And looking at what Penix is, he's a guy that's got a lot of intangibles. You drafted him eighth overall, even though you signed a quarterback for a 4-year deal, over $180 million and 90 of it guaranteed. It's a lot to sit there and put your quarterback like that on the bench. But I think if you're the Falcons right now, you don't know what's going to happen to Kirk after this year anyway, so you might look at making a change there quickly. But Penix, man, they're back up against the wall here. They're still in the playoff hunt. I mean, and I guess if you look at it too, I know I just mentioned about how the Buccaneers kind of currently hold that head on things if you're looking at the division, but they really are a couple games out of first place in the wild card too. If you look at the Commanders at 9-5, even the Rams at the four seed at 8-6, but like that can flip really quick on you too. With Seattle currently on the outside looking in right now. But I mean, right now, like the Commanders, if they win this week against Philly, which I don't think is going to happen, if they lose, the percentage drops to 77%. Whereas the Falcons, if they win this week versus the Giants, it goes to 38%. So a lot has to go right for Atlanta right now. And even though Kirk, got them the win on Monday against the Raiders, it wasn't really a good performance for him. And he really hasn't had a good 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Kirk hasn't really been himself. And if you're Atlanta, do you really make it kind of apparent now that come this offseason, you will look for Kirk Cousins to be a replacement player somewhere else? I mean, there's a lot of teams that could look to draft a quarterback, and maybe Kirk's one of those guys now that, you're 35, 36 years old, and that's your new role is that you're going to be, you know, um, the mentor quarterback for the young guy that gets taken by a team. I mean, if the Giants take Shador Sanders or Cam Ward, one or two, the Raiders do that, and they're not ready to throw him in quite yet. I mean, Kirk, you go to a guy on a 1-year deal, and the New York Jets are another team. You just want to get a guy on a 1-year deal, and I think you can go up and down the line of teams that could use a quarterback probably for 1 year to develop guys. But like New Orleans is a guy team needs a quarterback. I don't know if Kirk Cousins is very different than Derek Carr at this point in both their careers. But I think you're looking at both those options too. And for Penix, I mean, this is the beginning of what could be a great era for him if he's able to orchestrate a playoff berth for Atlanta right now. That's something where the Falcons really need to look at it and say, we're going to throw our guy into the fire. And if we lose, we lose. It's not really that much right now. Say if this week if they lose to the Giants, it goes down to 10%. The Giants are a 2-win team, but you're still playing for a lot of pride. But I think a lot of times you're trying to help out your draft position So the Giants aren't really in a position to want to win. But I think though there's a lot of playing time. If you want to look at it too, there's a lot of things you can learn from Penix. But if you don't get that right away, you do have Kirk to be able to come in right away. But I think it's one of those things where you're looking at Penix to be the future here of the Atlanta Falcons. That's the big benching for this week. The Browns also announced they are benching Jameis Winston this week for Dorian Thompson Robinson. Not also surprising because you know what Jameis is. You know that Cleveland, you're 3-11. There's not a lot left for you to play for, except if you want to play spoiler on Cincinnati and effectively kind of end their playoff opportunity this week against the Browns and the Bengals. There, that's always a good battle. But I mean, with Dorian Thompson Robinson too, he's young enough where you don't really know exactly what you might have on the table for him. So you're looking at a guy like that to maybe show himself off, showcase a little bit for Cleveland. But you're still, I don't think, too invested into what happens this year. And if I swear, if Kevin Stefanski gets fired, I don't think he should. I don't know if he will or not. If he does, I think he goes right to the top of that head coaching availability right now. I know I think like the Bears, and they're going to have an open opportunity. I know I've said Cliff Kingsbury before in the past, but Mike Vrabel, Kevin Stefanski, if Stefanski gets fired, there's always coaches out there that we don't expect to get fired that end up do. But I think that Deshaun Watson contract more um, really is the quote unquote, no pun intended, Achilles tear for that Browns team anyways. I think Deshaun Watson's contract is holding them back, and I think his play is holding them back for what they really want to do and really want to be. So I don't think it's anything necessary that Cleveland's got going wrong coaching wise. I think a lot of it's personnel wise. And now Nick Chubb going to be out for probably the rest of the year. You don't have a reliable quarterback. You don't have some of those things that make you a top team. Cleveland probably looking to get a quarterback this year's draft, but you're so invested in Deshaun Watson that, how risky are you going to be? It's one of those things where it's tough to say. But at 3-11, I mean it's a tough place to be. I want to see where they at on a lot of the mock drafts that are kind of coming up here. I know the Giants and the Raiders are kind of like your 1A and 1B for 1 and 2. And I think they're going to be taking quarterbacks right away in Shador Sanders and Cam Ward. I mean, it's really interesting here at pick number 7. A lot of people have a Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas. Like, I think a lot of it, you probably can't afford to have a quarterback right now. And I think that it's either going to be Ward and Sanders going 1 and 2. Um, and maybe you look to grab a quarterback somewhere else in the draft, maybe later down the line, like they did with the Sean Kaiser years ago or Dorian Thompson Robinson. Like you look to get a third or fourth round pick. There always are. Dak Prescott's out there just waiting to be claimed by certain teams and a chance to. So maybe that's more the way you go. But I think right now when you look at where they are right now, it's gonna be a tough spot for Cleveland right now to do anything. So well, see what you get Dorian Thompson Robinson. I kind of hate to see Jameis on the bench because I love watching Jameis play as a character and as a person. I mean, he really is just one of the best guys you could find around. Looking here though at the rest of the NFL playoff picture. We're going to get into our picks here in just a second. Um, you know what? I'm actually thinking I'm going to do picks first, and then we'll talk about the playoff outlook that we're going to go off of here. Usually we do picks on the Wednesday or the Thursday of games, but today we're doing on the Wednesday, and we'll kick off our holiday season tomorrow. So it's the Broncos and the Chargers taking in LA. This one's a tough game because Denver's played really well. They have one of the top defenses in all of football, but so do the Chargers, and Justin Herbert and company don't really turn over the ball that much. This is going to be a tough pick here. I'm going to take the Broncos in the spread at 2.5 point underdogs. And I'm also going to take them in the straight up as well. I believe in Denver a little bit right now, more than I do the Chargers. It's an AFC West battle. You're going to be going into LA, but it's one of those places to play where I think a lot of people will look to more shift at. People go to LA and fans travel well. You're in the same division. I think there'll be a lot of Bronco fans there. So I'll take the Broncos at 2.5 point underdogs to cover the spread, and I'll take them in the straight up. Houston Texans on Saturday the 21st. We'll be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. This one's tough because if Patrick Mahomes plays, I think the Chiefs are undoubtedly going to get this one um, to go. And he practiced full participant today. But at the same time, when he's not healthy, it's a different game with him. And it's a different game with Carson Wentz in there too. And here's my outlook on it. I think Kansas City will be smart to not play Mahomes this week because you have the playoff spot locked up. You have a few games on Buffalo, if I'm not believable. Look at the playoff picture right here. Buffalo at 11-3, Kansas City at 13-1. You still have a game on them. You're going to have to play again on Christmas, coming up quick here. I think it's best if you just don't play Mahomes this week. That's me personally like that. I don't think it's worth playing him this Saturday. So with that in mind, I'm going to take the Texans at 1.5 point favorites on the road against the Chiefs, and I will take the Texans in the straight up as well. Texans have a little more to play for right now, anyways. I think the Chiefs are just wise just to not play Mahomes this week. Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-4 will be traveling to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens, who are 9-5. Listen, these are the tough games of the week here you're looking at here. Pittsburgh's played really well as of late. Their defense, of course, we all know, one of the best in the league. Baltimore, though, has, what could be the MVP this year, Lamar Jackson. It's kind of shifting towards Josh Allen. Um, it's a little bit different here as we look at this one. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at 5.5 point underdogs over the Baltimore Ravens at home. So let's go Steelers for the win in the spread and in the straight up. Cleveland Browns will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday the 22nd at home in Cincinnati. This one's going to be pretty quick to me. I think Cincinnati has a lot more urgency, a lot more to play for right now. So I will lock them in as taking them for the spread and the straight up as well. New York Giants are 9.5 point underdogs against the Atlanta Falcons, who are 7-7 at home. Listen, I think I would take the Giants if it was a normal squad here, but the fact that Michael Penix is going to be making his debut could be a good thing for Atlanta, could be a bad thing for Atlanta. I'm going to take the Giants in the spread of this one at 9.5 point underdogs. Yes, they're 2-12, but you might keep yourself in it here. Some guys are still playing for pride, and whatnot. Guys are playing for next year. But I will take the Falcons in the straight up in this one. I think Penix will be able to get the job done. That Falcons squad is just more dynamic than the Giants ones is right now. So we'll take Giants in the spread. I will take the Falcons in the straight up. Detroit Lions, who are 12-2, their first loss in almost 3 months, taking on the Chicago Bears at home. This one's also going to be pretty quick to me. The Bears are in shambles right now. They got to protect their draft spot right now as well. You want to see some better improvement out of Caleb Williams. But I'll take the Lions in the straight up, and I'll take the Lions in the spread at 6.5 point favorites on the road. Next game on our hands is the Indianapolis Colts. Will be at home against the Tennessee Titans, where the Colts are 4.5 point favorites in this one. Titans, of course, 3-11. They're going to be having another quarterback change in Mason Rudolph. I think Mason Rudolph works better in that offense than Will Levis anyways. Tennessee's probably looking at getting a quarterback up there. But I'm going to take the Colts in this one at home at 4.5 point spread favorites, and I will take them in the straight up as well. LA Rams will be traveling to the New York Jets, be taking them on the road. Rams are 8-6, have a lot to play for, still currently in the playoff spot as the 4 seed. Jets, of course, we know are eliminated from playoff contention. So with that in mind, I will take the Rams here in the straight up and the Rams in spread at 3.5 point favorites over the Jets. Philadelphia Eagles are on the road. They'll be traveling to Washington to take on the Commanders, where the Eagles are 3.5 point favorites here over the Eagles. The Commanders do have more to play for here than the Eagles do, but the Eagles are still fighting for that 1 seed now. They're tied with Detroit in terms of the 1 seed. Look at the playoff picture right now. You got the Vikings at 12-2, the Lions 12-2, and the Eagles all 12-2. You're going to be a lot of teams fighting for every single game in this one. Saquon Barkley still wants to prove he's the MVP of the league, potentially. Therefore, I will take the Eagles here in the straight up, and the Eagles at spread at 3.5 point favorites. Arizona Cardinals, who are 7-7, are 3.5 point favorites on the road against the Carolina Panthers, who are 3-11. Pretty quick to me here. Cardinals are the better team. I picked the Panthers last week against the Cowboys. Didn't impress me much. So I'm going to go back to not hating on the Panthers, but maybe more seeing them for who they are. We'll take the Cardinals in the straight up and the Cardinals in the spread at 3.5 point favorites on the road. Minnesota Vikings are 2.5 point favorites on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. And remember, Seattle's got a lot to play for here as well. But I think when you look at it, Minnesota's just playing so well. They're so smooth. Even when they're not playing well, they're playing well. They're finding a way to come up with wins. And on the road here, they're going to prove this is going to be a building block win because they're going to prove they can win on the road. If they want to get to the promised land right now is the number one seed. The promised land, the playoffs, because they might be going on the road for all their games, is to beat better teams seeded wise. So this is going to be the Vikings going to take this one on the road at 2.5 point favorites over the Seattle Seahawks. Next game on our hand at the 325 game, the Buffalo Bills. We take on the New England Patriots. This one's in Buffalo, and the Bills are 13.5 point favorites over the Patriots. Now, I think it's the biggest spread of the week. I don't think New England's that bad, but you got the MVP on your hand, and they've put up, what, 45 points and 48 points the last 2 weeks. Hard to go against Buffalo in this one. I will definitely not go against them in the straight up. But at 13.5 point favorites, I'm going to take them. I'm going to take the Bills here in the straight up in the spread. They're going to cover that 13.5 point under or favorite spread at home. Hard not to pick them when you put up almost over 90 points in the last 2 weeks. Hard not to go against you there. So I'll take the Bills in the spread there over the Patriots. Jacksonville Jaguars are 0.5 point favorite going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas. If Aiden O'Connell is playing at quarterback, which I think he's going to, the Raiders are a much better team, I think, than Jacksonville is. So I'm going to take the Raiders and the spread at 0.5 point underdog. And I'll take the Raiders in the straight up as well with Aiden O'Connell, I believe, will be playing quarterback this week for the Raiders. Next game on our hands is the San Francisco 49ers, who are 6-8, taking on the Dolphins, who are also 6-8. A battle of the disappointing teams, I think, this year in football. In Miami on the 22nd. The 49ers are banged up. Deebo Samuel's not playing well this year. George Kittle's having a good year, but he's banged up. The Dolphins right now are pretty solid. Tua Tagovailoa plays pretty well, except for last week. He's played a pretty good last month. I'm still going to take the 49ers in this one on the road at 1.5 point favorites here. I think are they mathematically eliminated? I think I should say it's less than 1% with a win. It's less than 1% in total. Weirder stuff has happened, so I won't say it's against them right now. The Dolphins have a little bit more to play for, though. Gosh darn. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to take the Dolphins at home at 1.5 point favorites over San Fran. San Fran is the next thing you're playing for here is contracts. Miami, the Dolphins are fighting for playoff spot here. I'll take the Dolphins at 1.5 point favorites or the 49ers. Flip a pick. Buccaneers will be taking on the Dallas Cowboys here on Sunday Night Football. Pretty quick here. The Buccaneers are a much better team than Dallas. They came in last week and upset the Chargers at their turf. I think that's going to carry over here. I'll take the Buccaneers at 3.5 point favorites over the Cowboys in the straight up and in the spread. And the Monday night game this week is the New Orleans Saints will be taking on the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers are 13.5 point favorites here at home. Take New Orleans, an indoor team, put them outside. It's supposed to snow up in the Midwest here. It's going to be cold. It's not going to be great for New Orleans. So therefore, give me the home field advantage. One of the last few teams have the true home field advantage in the Packers here at 10-4. Going to be 11-4 if I think they're going to win this one the straight up. And I'll take them in the 13.5 point underdog or favorites in this one. That is my weekly picks for this week on the Green Zone podcast. Like I say, I will still at least keep posting those in some format if we don't record here over our break. I still want to be able to get those out to all of you. We've been doing them for week in and week out. Would hate to hear and see that happening too, especially over break. If I'm talking about, I'll be going home for the winter break here, getting off here on school. Won't be back till mid-January. By that point, we got Black Monday coming up with the NFL coaching firings, playoffs, insert Jim Mora clip. But there's a lot to be having here in the next month, so I want to still stay on top of a lot of that here. We look to get out something at least every week here on the Green Zone podcast in some format, in some shape, way, or form. So we look to keep doing that here. I want to step forward here a little bit in the baseball because Cody Bellinger now is going to be a New York Yankee. I'm just kind of jumping right into it. But Cody Bellinger yesterday getting acquired by the Yankees for next to nothing because they're taking on a big salary, and the Cubs are actually paying some of that salary just for a minor league prospect there. I mean, it's kind of feels like he's been a Yankee already in a weird way, but he's poised to be a Yankee at some point. Remember his dad played there in their glory days in the late 90s, early 2000s, won a few rings with them. This is a great move, I think, for the Yankees to make too, because they needed a left-hand bat at Yankee Stadium. They needed that to happen. And of course, too, you need defense that comes with it because a lot of the left-handed bats that are in the free agent market aren't spectacular defenders. You look at guys, Anthony Santander, exclusively pretty much a DH. He's not going to bring much to the table defensively. So going out and getting defensive, god like that Bellinger is very good defensive center fielder, and it looks like he's gonna play center field. And they haven't really announced if he's gonna play center or first quite yet. I mean, Alex Verdugo looks to be on the way out. Then if you're the Yankees, if Dominguez will play in left, Bellinger in center, Judge in right. So Verdugo's kind of the odd guy out. So we'll see where he lands here. I'm a Minnesota sports fan. If you haven't known here on here, I've only mentioned it quite a few times. I think that might be a good move for the Twins to make if you want to bring Verdugo and put him in right field. He's basically like kind of like Max Kepler 2.0, above average defender, a decent bat. If you can get that, but the defense there is what you really prioritize. But Bellinger, the Yankees, man, I think it's a great fit for baseball. I think it's a great fit for the Yankees to really start getting aggressive here after the Juan Soto deals. And the last thing I really want to touch on here, it's not going to be baseball related, not going to be anything related. I just want to shift into Christmas mode. I want to thank you guys out there for listening, tuning in every weekend and week out, or wherever you may be watching from, exclusively here on our YouTube channel and Green Zone Pod. Look at this podcast has only been going on, almost been going on for a year, and if you look at the subscribers and the views that we usually get here, not a huge amount of audience that we have here. But for those of you who do tune in week in and week out, I applaud you and I thank you for being part of the Green Zone podcast journey. We look for 2025 to be another great year for this podcast, at least to finish the year strong from January to May. And we'll see what happens going forth and after that. But I really want to thank you all for tuning in and just say how thankful I am, how grateful I am for people out there who listen and tune into these. So if this is the last, this will be the last podcast of 2024 that is formatted in this same studio here around us with this microphone, these cameras, all this. It'll shift a little bit here, maybe the next week or so, and possibly the first month of January. But I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and watching here. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a great end of the NFL football season. Let's keep going with the baseball moves. Basketball season's still on us, and hockey season as well. So I will see you guys here back in this studio in the middle of January. So from Cameron Green and the Green Zone podcast, I want to thank you all for tuning in this week. Wish you guys a Merry Christmas. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to us on our Twitter page at Green Zone Pod. Hit the like and subscribe button as well, and we'll see you guys in the middle of January. Thanks, guys.